feel any of those feelings anymore. And at 28 years old, when I had my first drug and it affected my body, how can I not love that drug? It took all the pain away. It took that little boy that wasn't picked, I didn't care. The kid that didn't have a father, I didn't care. It didn't matter. I didn't care about nothing. All I knew is that I felt something that I never felt, and that was a feeling that made me numb to my emotions. That's how the journey began of my addiction.
When I come, I pray the 23rd Psalm. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forevermore. Amen.
So there comes a time when I think, for me anyway, that I had to say, I surrender. Take him, God.
I thought that God was punishing me. Who has a baby at 13 and their mom dies at 14? How could you take my mom? You can't love me.
Yeah, no, there's no more hate. I don't think there ever was hate, but it definitely was, there wasn't much love.
It's called The Bench I Hope to Die On. Newark Penn Station is a place I knew really well because for many years, I called it home. I lived on a bench there. They say home is where the heart is. I wondered to myself, does a shattered heart count?
Is we've created a program called the iThirst Spiritual Companion, which means that we train people within dioceses to act as the cross between a spiritual director and a recovery coach. So could you imagine if you could knock on the door of any Catholic church, they would be provided with a person that knew how to give spiritual consolation and recovery resource information, right?
Phenomenal. I love the title. iThirst, which is one of the 7 last words of Jesus from the cross, that powerful, that overpowering thirst that he had, which you hear addicts speak about.
So the one thing that I think is so important about understanding recovery is understanding that recovery is love. Loving people where they're at and loving them even when they can't find it within themselves to love themselves. That's where we come in. That's where we are present and there for folks. And it's such a beautiful and blessed thing. You know, I remember the first time that I started working with James. And the one thing that I felt was there was a man that was so filled with love and was learning how to love himself. To be with him on that journey as he finds himself, as he makes that journey of transformation, as he finds his authentic self, and in so doing gets closer to the God of his understanding, has been an unbelievable journey to accompany him on. And it's so much a part of what we do. Ruby, when I met Ruby, she is just glowing with recovery. Glowing because she has developed intimacy with her God and with her fellows. And now in her life, she strives so much to help others, especially those that are homeless. She's been there, she understands, and she loves. And it's through that love that she's able to make a difference. And Melinda, when I met Melinda, her son was still alive, and she was very much in tumult. His passing was tragic for everyone involved, but particularly for his mother. But yet I can't help thinking that God, in his love and his wisdom, has in Melinda really raised a warrior who will fight to let others know that those who suffer from substance use disorders and their families are very much real and beautiful people who are deserving of our love.
Felt abandoned. The disease of addiction is mind and mood. So here's the addict and there's the world. Give me, I want, do you, I need, will you. That's it. It's the core of addiction, the core, the root is self-centeredness.
Was it like winning a lottery? Sorry. Was the pride and joy of the whole family? Sorry. Sorry.
When we were growing up, he really was like the life of all of the parties. And
the one thing that I hold on to is just his personality before the addiction started. Sorry, I'm gonna cry, but he was always the life of the party, always funny. He was always laughing, always wanted to make you laugh. You know, he just had such a great energy, always. He always wanted to make other people smile, make everyone else happy. So that's really how I remember him.
I do remember, of course, I think always of who Nunzio was before, and this child that I had, as beautiful as he was, my first boy, in the hospital. Then as a little boy, 4 years old, we took a vacation in Italy. Always so sweet, a lot of fun. He was always hamming for the camera. He had a great sense of humor. He had
Oh, this place is amazing, and even though it's a cemetery where it's death, it's so much life for me. So my life was pretty normal at this time. Had a normal life. We went to church, we ate dinner, grandma worked, we went to school. We had a really, really normal life. Very normal. We played in the backyard. We had a swing set. We had family in the whole house. Sundays was filled with all kinds of cooking, baking, and praying. We did church every Sunday.
He was my firstborn. He was adorable. He had the biggest brown eyes and one curl. But he always had a good heart. He was always a good kid.
So yeah, but little Jim, he was, I would call him, he was a little demon, you know, growing up. Because he had such a good heart, even as a little kid, and that he wanted to share that with people.
Yeah, me and Jimmy were close. We were close. Yeah, we were tight. I mean, you know.
It was a lot of fun times together. If anybody knows Jimmy, he's the life of the party. He brings a lot of good energy, positive believer. It was the perfect, you know, brother-in-law.
My story is one that is really about how God calls people, the least likely of people, to do work that He has in store for them. My name is Keaton Douglas, and I am the founder and the executive director of the iThirst initiative of the missionary servants of the Most Holy Trinity. For many, many years, I was a singer, and I had a great opportunity to perform for many elected officials and great parties and all over in different venues all over the country. I even had an opportunity to sing for the President of the United States twice at inaugural balls. It was really a blessing, and I had a great time doing it. But somewhere along the line, I also I suffered because I lost my marriage unexpectedly, and it sent me into a lot of despair. I was really angry and resentful for a while. I processed a lot of that sadness. And after about 8 years, I had a moment of forgiveness. And I felt like it was that moment of forgiveness that really changed my life. After I began this process of kind of ridding myself of resentment, I started to get in touch with my faith again, and I started to seek out ways to find my faith. I was called to prayer more. So at a certain point, I wanted to learn more about this God that was making these big changes in my life. So I figured I had to learn more, and I saw an advertisement in a local Catholic newspaper about a class that was being offered on spirituality and public speaking. And I thought, wow, that's great for me. It was at Seton Hall University, and I went and I made an appointment with the Associate Dean of the School of Theology, Dr. Diane Traflett. And unfortunately, it didn't work out on my schedule that I could take that class, but she said, don't worry, I think that you need to start studying in the master's program here. I think you need a master's in theology. Not at all what I had thought about when I was going in there. But by the time I left that day, I was enrolled. And I remember my first day of class, I was sitting amongst a sea of seminarians, 1 or 2 other lay people. And I thought, I can't do this. Why am I here? Why am I putting myself through this? But I went back for the second day, and on the second day of class, a young man came up to me, and he looked at me and he said, I think you could use a friend. His name was Brother Aro. He was indeed a seminarian, but for a particular community of priests and brothers known as the missionary servants of the Most Holy Trinity. We became fast friends, and he introduced me to the community at the missionary servants at the Shrine of St. Joseph in Sterling, New Jersey. Aro told me that the founder of their community, Father Judge, was really interested in serving the poor and the abandoned, and that they had been doing so for almost 100 years since their founding. Well, one day they asked me if I would speak and give my witness story that I had given so many times before to a group of women who were suffering from drug and alcohol addiction, who were on retreat at the shrine at St. Joseph. And I remember I said to them, what do they want to hear from me for? So I walked into the room and I did the first thing that I knew how to do, which was to sing. And I think it was at that moment that I realized something that was so important, and that was it didn't matter what brought us to that point of suffering. It didn't matter what had broken us, whether it was drugs and alcohol or adultery. It didn't matter. What mattered was that we all suffer. My call is to serve those that are suffering from addictions and their families. And so it began that I became a regular volunteer with the recovery team at the Shrine of St. Joseph.
People think of those who are suffering from addiction as having a weakness, as being undisciplined, as being less than. But I really feel that it had to have taken strength that I don't think I could ever have mustered up to keep trying to get free, to keep trying. When I think of what it must have taken for him to make those decisions, to go again and again and again, It seems kind of like a miracle to me. He didn't give up.
The worst part about being an undercover addict is that you can't get no help. Everybody was drinking and partying. I remember they used to have us coming out and dancing in front of everybody and stuff like that, not knowing that they was making us victims.
So it just got worse. It got progressively worse, but I always wanted to think that it was going to get better, but it never did. It always got worse. And for 15 years, the phone rings or the doorbell rings. You always think that this is it. I'm not going to see him anymore. And the more I tried, and every time he came, and he would say, "Oh, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to be okay." I always believed. I would go out and get him a couple of shirts, like, here, go on an interview, do whatever. And it just didn't change. It just got worse. Sundays, we come and we sit as a family, as most families do, and we break bread together. And he was always the one missing. And then when he would be here, he'd be very arrogant, like he was entitled.
I blame myself for not realizing and not picking up the little messages that he was sending out.
So I was very angry with him because I watched her go through hell, waiting for the phone calls, because he stole from us, and especially me.
It made me angry a lot. It kind of made me distance myself from him because I think I resented him for, how it affected our family.
Once you break trust more than once, more than twice, then the trust, there's no way that you can have trust anymore. It's impossible to have it, while they're in that state.
That was like the most difficult thing, to have hope. He overdosed in the garage and we went out and barely got there in time. They had to Narcan him. I'm just like holding his head and trying to see if he was still breathing. The cops showed up and they had to Narcan him. Is this it? Is this the end of it?
Worrying, that's what you do. You worry about him, because he's on the streets and you think, something's gonna happen to him,
There was no brother. He didn't have a brother. He told me, that's not my brother, that's not who I grew up with. I don't know who this person is because...
On Friday night, September 21st, I was expecting Nunzio to come home. He called me and said he was on his way and that he would be home soon. And so I was just expecting that, and I went to bed. But then I noticed that he wasn't there in the morning, and the next day he didn't come home. And actually, when we look back on it, all of us felt something was not quite right. We all felt a kind of foreboding. And when I was out, when I came back home, I just had to go back out, and I was looking for him. And at the same time as I left, my husband came home and he went out, and he went in another direction and was looking for him. And we both came home and we both pulled our cars into the driveway at the same time on Saturday afternoon. And as we pulled our cars in, 4 police cars pulled up onto the street. It was like it was timed. And as soon as they pulled up and they got out and started walking toward me, I knew. And I started screaming from a place that I didn't know existed inside of me. And I knew that it was over, that it was the end.
One of the things I learned from the recovery team at the Shrine of St. Joseph was that the hallmarks of any disease of addiction of any sort, whether it's chemical or substance abuse or pornography, the hallmarks of this disease are despair, unworthiness, feelings of shame, feelings of guilt. These feelings at their root are part of one's spiritual condition, so they need a spiritual remedy. Who can better give this spiritual remedy than our church? The problem was that our faith communities didn't really know too much about the disease of addiction as a spiritual disease. That we needed to do more. We needed to do more as a faith community. And so that's where the iThirst initiative came in. iThirst, of course, are some of the last words of Christ on the cross, the fifth of his last 7 utterances. But it also became an acronym. The word thirst stands for the Healing Initiative, Recovery, Spirituality, and 12-Step. On my heart, I knew that we had to do something in terms of education and prevention, but then we still had to keep on working with those who were incarcerated. We needed to start working with those that were in treatment facilities. We needed to spread to those folks the necessary word that there was a necessary spiritual dimension to wellness that they weren't getting from regular treatment programs. And we had to train people to go in there so that they could go into prisons, so they could go into jails, they could go into treatment facilities. They could start sowing those seeds of spirituality to men and women that may never, ever have experienced it before. We started doing aftercare recovery Bible studies, family and friends meeting groups, and we started putting a team of people around us. But there was still one step more that we needed to do, and that was we had to train the rest of the church, with a capital C, how to do the same things that we were doing. So even though it took years, we wrote a curriculum to take men and women, laity and clergy, and educate them into the nature of this disease as a spiritual disease with devastating psychological and physiological ramifications. We began teaching that program to various communities and to dioceses and archdioceses so that they could have an iThirst spiritual companion in their parishes. Somebody that a family member or an afflicted person could call when they were struggling with addiction. This is our goal.
I went to the dentist. I was 28 years old. I had to have a wisdom tooth pulled. And I went to the dentist office, had the procedure, and he gave me a prescription. He gave me the prescription, and I went to this pharmacy. He said, take 2 of them, and before the Novocaine wears off. So I went to the pharmacy, 28 years old, never did a drug, never knew anything about them except that, there were winos, right? I call them winos. They were small on the street, and drugs were something that was unfathomable to me, to be honest with you. So when I got the prescription, I went home, and I did as I was told. I took 2 of the pills, and I remember I was on the phone, and all of a sudden, when that hit me, I actually rose up out of my chair, and I actually rose up, and I was just like, I took a deep breath, because it took my breath away. It was a moment that changed everything. And I said to my friend on the phone, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what this is, but I feel really good. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And I was pacing, and she said, well, you just took something. What did you say you went to the pharmacy for? And I couldn't even pronounce it. And I was like, hydrocodone? It was hydrocodone. It was Vicodin ES. ES, too. Extra strength. It wasn't even regular. It was extra strength. So when it hit me, and it made me feel that feeling, it was the moment that I knew there's something to make me not be me. And I loved it. The next thing I knew, man, I was doctor shopping, which means I went to different doctors, and I was like, oh, my back, oh, my shoulder, oh, this. And, they would give them to me, like 16 Vicodin at a time. I started taking 8 Vicodin at a time. And it was a lot, you know, and to just feel, because there's a progression that happened, the progression of those drugs. One is no longer enough. Two.
My son gave me this book. He died in 2018. He gave me this in 2014. He always gave me something that he knew would be special to me. And this is a book of reflections on scripture. I still read it every night. You can see that it's falling apart. But I still have the card that he wrote to me in it. And this is what he wrote to me in 2014, on my birthday. Mom, happy birthday. Thank you for being the wonderful mother that you are. Thank you for sticking by me throughout all my troubles and issues and still believing in me. I am lucky to have a mother as wonderful as you, and I'm going to do my very best to become the man you know I can be. I love you. Love, Nuncio. Jesus, hide me in your wounds. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. These are memorial candles, and this candle is for my son, Nuncio, a memorial candle that burns perpetually, and it's in the sanctuary of our Blessed Mother of Sorrows, so that she's always watching over him. I'm leaving church now, and after daily Mass, after morning Mass, I go to the cemetery to be with my son, to pray for him every day and take care of his grave. And after that, then I go back home and get ready and go to work. But it's the way that I start my day, the way I have to start my day, with my thoughts and prayers for him. And all of that draws me closer to God. So this is where my son rests now. He rests with his grandfather, and I'm very blessed that we could have done that, that they were together. They loved each other so much. I come here every day to be with him, to take
we were babies and not really treated as so, because of the lifestyle. 10 years old, I remember my cousin, and I remember she had been molested. I'm sure it was around 10, and I remember her telling us who it was, and that she was getting money from this person and things of that, and we had to be, by 11 years old, I knew how to keep secrets. And even though we was scared, it was exciting to us. So it was things that had happened to us, like people giving me dimes and stuff like that, and telling me that to call them when I was 18 and things like that, or touching me in certain ways that was inappropriate and made me very uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to tell my mom, because I knew it was bad. I wasn't penetrated, but I was molested, and I knew to keep secrets. And I knew if I didn't tell that I could get money. And I was taught that at 10.
In 2017, the Missionary Servants of the Most Holy Trinity recognized the iThirst initiative as one of their core missions. Their commitment to the iThirst initiative shows that they understand that this is a 21st century manifestation of the work that Father Thomas Judge, their founder, has always done, always recognizing the poor and the abandoned. All faith communities have acted like the priest and the Levite in the story of the Good Samaritan. Because the people that have suffered from substance use disorders in particular have lived in the abyss of addiction and have been isolated for so long. We're developing relationships, all sorts of relationships, for people, so that they feel brought back into community, back into nature, back into the loving presence of God, however He manifests Himself. I think that we forget that the role of the church is to work in these great societal maladies. The church not only has a role, but an obligation to help those who are trying to find their way home. And it's up to us to welcome them back. And the way that we can do that is to understand, right? A little bit more about the disease of addiction, so that we can be present and we can accompany those that suffer, and we can accompany their family members too. And it says, I hear you. You're important. Because for too long, the vulnerable and the marginalized haven't been heard, especially this population. So we want to say, we're listening. We're listening.
And I want to tell you all guys a story right now, something really, really miraculous. To me, it's so miraculous and amazing, it's a miracle. A miracle is something that even a scientist cannot explain. My existence, my very existence is that. What I want to tell you is this. There's a building that we're going to walk to at this point that I went for an interview one day. I was called by the director of this place, and he asked me if I wanted to come in for an interview for a job. And I said, sure, where are you located? He said, we're located at Lincoln Park in Newark, New Jersey. I was like, okay. And I had no idea about the experience that I was about to have. I had no idea about the lesson that I was about to understand and what I rose up out of, which is really amazing. I want to take you this way to the building. So there's a third floor window over there with that corner building. I walked in, I had my little suit on, one that I had actually been able to get in recovery from drug addiction. And when I had my suit on, I walked in, I felt confident. I felt as the person that I was supposed to be and manifesting into. And as I'm sitting there, these two men are in suits across the table from me. And now there's a big bay window. So what's happening is they said, have a seat, sir. I sat down. And as I sat down at that desk across from them, behind them, the view of the tree that I slept under. I couldn't believe I was inside. I couldn't believe that I really made it inside. Like, how do you make it inside out of that? you know, living with the tree as shelter. So as I'm sitting there, he starts asking me these questions, and I can't take my attention off of the tree that I slept under. I can't help but keep noticing. My spirit is saying, pay attention. Pay attention and be present of what you rose out of, and what, without your permission, you rose out of. To just keep helping other people the best I can in my brokenness still, right? Because I'm still not whole. But when I was in there, I said to the gentleman, what is it that you could bring to this company? And I said to him, sir, I have to stop the interview a second. I need you to know something. As you're talking to me, I can't help but notice the tree that I once slept under outside of this window. I can't help but look at the surroundings and understand what I survived. And one of the biggest things was, I said, you know, what I can bring to Cure is my truth. I said, whether I get this job or not, whether I'm able to be a part of this company, at this point, this interview was a gift. I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I know for me to be sitting on this side of the window and looking out is something that I'll never forget, and an experience that I'm able to live with forever and remember. And guess what? I got the job. They gave me the job. He was like, young man, I think that you could bring some things to this company. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but let's try, you know? And next thing I know, he tells me, come next week. I did all the paperwork. I was so excited. I told my family, oh my God, I got a job. You know, I'm gonna be like a counselor intern. I'm so excited. I'm gonna be with the men all day of this place, and I'm gonna be able to run groups and use my lessons and my voice, and I'm finding my purpose. And they were so excited for me. And I remember my first day, I drove up and I parked and I stopped. And I realized like what it is that I really came out of. And I don't know how. Some days I really don't still. But I do know that I'm grateful. They say a grateful addict will never use, because it's the gratitude that makes me keep remembering where I was at one point and where I am not now.
James is a great counselor. Since I've been here, I don't know him that much, but he put a change in my life. Like I'm 21, I'm young, but seeing him, man, that makes me go farther. The way, the stuff he wear, everything he do for the 61 for us, is big, man. It's big.
Thank you.
I appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you. That comes from my heart. Thank you. I appreciate you. That means the world to me. That's why I'm here, though, for you.
I know. Role model. We love Jay.
Again.
Man, we got it again.
I love you too, Michael. Thank you, God. Love you.
It will never stop loving you. It will means you are. And I hope that this helps somebody else in need.
Here on my right, which is Cheryl Clark, is my sponsor.
And I was watching her, how resistant she was, you know, and real defiant. And I was like, wow. But I had to put her in her place, you know, with the sponsors, you know. So I was and I saw something in Ruby that she didn't see in herself.
And I love you so very much. And she, you know, no matter what, I can't intimidate her. You know, tell her leave me alone, and I got this, because I don't. And she's reminding me every day that I don't have this. I'm a learning. It's an everyday process. It's an everyday process, but I know with her and my sister that I'm good, just for today.
Ruby, Clark, I love you.
I love you too.
And I'm rocking and rolling with you.
Thank you, Ella.
psychological. I was always waiting for that pew to hit me in the head again, you know? And thank God, God's been good so far.
What did it feel like when he recently was asked to be the keynote speaker?
Thrilling, just even today, I'm trying to help people, and I just see the people like that. His phone is constantly going when he's here, and he's talking to people, and yeah, what an honor that was. And to hear him get up there and speak was like, oh my God, totally different person.
Do you feel like those prayers of those 15 years were answered?
Finally, somebody was home. Yeah, somebody was home. And then we, you know, I think probably this past year is probably like the best, because I think I see him and Rob, which means so much to me, get along now. Like they laugh with each other. I think Rob has told him how proud he is of him.
He really, really turned out to be a really great person. He has got such confidence in himself now, and you know, and all he accomplished, he did nothing but elevate himself. I mean, he went from 0 to 100, you know? I mean, very proud of him. He changed everything in his life, only for the better.
I'm proud of him. Yeah, I'm happy that he's back and doing his thing. I'm definitely proud of him.
You know that the role that you have played with us has just been providential, and I'm really grateful to God.
I am grateful to God. You know, I feel that if I were not able to do this, to engage in this way, I'm not sure how I would deal with my grief.
I have a great relationship with God today.
If you had to speak to a family member who was going through the same thing that you did with Nunzio, if you had to talk to the brother of somebody else going through the same thing, what would you explain to that brother that you know now that maybe you didn't when you were in the middle of it?
I think you have to take your emotions and your ego out of it. That was the hardest thing for me, was taking my emotion, and I felt like he was hurting the family, and I took that personal. I would take that out of it. Like, you have to put yourself in their shoes, and really it takes time and it takes effort to really think about what they're going through. And I think I could have done more of like actually researching like symptoms and things that they go through and things that they think and what a withdrawal feels like and what a withdrawal looks like. I had so much anger because of it. It was kind of tearing the family apart, and I took it too personal. So for somebody else that would be going through it, you really don't know what the person is feeling or experiencing. And I would say the pain of regret, I think, is something that I pray for forgiveness all the time, but it's something that it's really like the worst thing you can live with, because like you could have done the right thing, but maybe you didn't. Like I would have gone, looking back now, I would have gone to the end of the earth to try to make something happen and to try and help him. But I say that now looking back, but I know when you're in the moment, there are so many different things that are going on. So I think to somebody that's going through it, I think you have to take like a 30,000 foot view of the situation and take your feelings out of it and take your emotions and your ego, and it's not personal to you. You have to be completely selfless, and I think to make it work and to give it your best shot to live with no regret, you have to be like a servant leader of the family. Like, you just have to do everything you can to serve them and try and help them. And I think that's the best way to lead maybe your family, or to lead that person to help them with sobriety, is to be selfless and to be a servant. So I think that's something I regret not doing more of.
I couldn't be more blessed. This singer from New Jersey got a call, and I'm so thankful that I answered. And I hope that you'll join us and journey with us in showing God's love to those who haven't felt it so much before.